Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. History is story time. Now my last two videos have been talking about Mombasa, the people involved with Mombasa, and today I'm going to be talking about one such people. These are the Omani Arabs. Well guys, prepare yourself because we are delving deep into the Omani history. So let's begin. Now I'm going to be talking about the origins of the Omani tribes. Now the Omani, where the Omanis reside today, the area known as Oman, was occupied as early as 5000 BC. In fact, there is evidence of a civilization called a Magan civilization, which existed around 2500 BCE, which is a long time ago. Even then, these people were traders. They were trading frankincense, they were trading myrrh, they were even trading precious metals. So these people they always had a sense of trade in their blood, and this was to prove influential in their later history. However, for now, very few people actually lived in Oman because of just how far it is from these other kingdoms, but this was about to change. Now, around the 3rd to 6th century BCE, there was a lot of movement, migration of tribes from the interior Arab states and external states into Oman. And this was because of a few factors, such as, for one, there were environmental changes during the 3rd to 6th century. In fact, in Yemen, where a lot of Arabs had resided, a dam, it was called, let me make sure, Marib Dam. So this Marib Dam, it was a source of water for many people, source of livelihood, where they could farm, where they could reside. And this dam actually collapsed, and it ruined their civilization, and they were forced to move. And one such tribe was the Azd tribe. Very powerful tribe. They moved into Oman. Also, there were tribal conflicts between tribes such as the Azd. There were also the Hinawi and Gafiri confederations. These confederations are made up of many other smaller tribes who come up together to, gang up, get strength to confront tribes, powerful tribes such as the Azd tribe. Also, there were tribes that were also looking for political power, and going to Oman would grant them just that. So around the 3rd to 6th century, there was a lot of migration into Oman territory. Also, I have to mention the coastal areas of Oman had very many swamps, and they were fertile. So if you moved there, you could cultivate your crops and you could live a pretty comfortable life. Now there was the rise of Islam. In 629, Oman became one of the first areas. Its people became one of the first to convert to the new religion, which was Islam. And they were basically ruled by these caliphates. There was the Rashidun Caliphate, the Abbasid Caliphates. These caliphates are of Muslim leaders who conquered nearby kingdoms under themselves. And Oman was one of them, though it remained semi-independent. Now, when let's say the Islam religion, fractured into Shia and Sunni, the people of Oman, they turned to a different branch of Islam. This was the Ibadi branch of Islam. And up to today, it's one of the only areas with this type of Islam religion. Now, around this time, the people also began making connections, not just in Arabia, but outside into India, some into Mombasa, where there were cities that were now actually growing. So around this time, they were making connections around the Indian Ocean. Now, in 1507, the Portuguese arrived, and from what it seems like, they did not arrive in peace. They were led by a general. He was called Alfonso de Albuquerque. I hope I spelled that correctly. And he conquered the Oman territory, and for the next 140 years, Oman cities, Oman ports, the Oman area were generally under Portuguese control. Of course, the Portuguese had arrived in East Africa seeking to control the trade routes around the Indian Ocean. And since the Oman had become very influential in this trade, the Portuguese had just decided, well, It would be easier to just conquer you than to trade with you. And that is what they did. However, the Oman people eventually got tired of being ruled by these invaders, and in 1650 dynasty, the Al-Yaruba dynasty, under the Imam Nasir bin Murshid, they led a campaign against these Portuguese invaders. And a sultan he was called Bin Saif I. He managed to expel the Portuguese out of Oman in 1650, and then led campaigns against them in other Portuguese-controlled areas around the Indian Ocean. His successor was Saif bin Sultan II. In fact, he invaded Mombasa, and for 33 months he campaigned. He just stayed outside the city walls, eventually taking Mombasa, which was a very key and strategic location in the trade around the Indian Ocean. Well, however, after they had managed to expel the Portuguese, there basically arose these tribal conflicts. Again, Oman is an area occupied by very many tribes, and they basically started fighting each other during this time. Eventually, order was restored, but under a new dynasty, and this was the Al-Busaid dynasty. In fact, this dynasty is in control up to today. Now, this Al-Busaid dynasty ruled Oman at its apex, while it was strongest. This was due to the fact that the Al-Busaid, they centralized power. All these tribes, they now recognized one ruler, who was the Al-Busaid Sultan.